mean, they're pleading to God, how long are you going to be until you avenge our blood? And then you see signs in the heavens going on. The sun is turning to black. The moon is red, stars falling, and catastrophes, and people hiding under rocks. Well, remember, like Jesus said, you're going to be calling for the rocks to fall down on you. When they destroyed Jerusalem, the guys, the leaders of the bands, were actually hiding in the caves inside Jerusalem. Now, as far as the things you see in the heavens, you see the same kind of symbology that Ezekiel's talking about before the destruction of Jerusalem. So these are catastrophic events, and for Israel, how catastrophic an event is that to be totally wiped out? And if you study the history, which I do have a little video on the fall of Jerusalem, you know, they had rejected Jesus, but they chose a robber murderer instead, Barabbas. And so later on, through those next years, Israel got inundated by rebels and thieves, murderers, the different Jews in different bands, and they were killing the decent Jews that were there. But, you know, they let them get away with it, until they were consumed themselves. And so in Jerusalem, they were fighting in 3 different bands, killing each other. Even at the temple, there was bloodshed before the Romans even got there. The Romans didn't want to destroy it. So then we have the 7 trumpets. You see things in the heavens where you see lightning and thunder coming down, hail storms hitting. You still see the things in the heavens. Take this mountain that's on fire getting thrown into the sea. That one was, well, and the water's becoming blood, the ship's getting broken up. Well, when I was reading Josephus, the history of the wars that happened at 70 AD, the Jewish rebels, they took off Jaffa, Tel Aviv there, into the ocean in the ships. And the wind smashed their ships, drove them back to shore. And the shores were bloody, Josephus said. And the same thing happened in Galilee, as the Romans were going after Jews on Galilee, and the Jews didn't get away. And so there was a lot of bloodshed. And then as far as that mountain burning, getting thrown into the sea, the only time you see what you see is Jesus saying, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be thrown in the sea, and it will do it. Well, we don't see physical mountains being thrown into the sea, but what we saw before that was Jesus cursing the fig tree. He went to the fig tree, it gave no fruit. He cursed it. When they came back, Peter says, look, that fig tree is dead. Yeah, and no more fruit will come from that. And he's talking about a mountain being thrown into the sea. Well, you know, those who are following God should be fruitful. Israel should have been fruitful towards God. But when God went right before them, when Jesus is right there with them, they were not fruitful. They weren't following God. But there's always some that are. That's called a remnant. You know, the end of the carpet, the last piece there that's left over. It's not the whole part, but it's part of it. And so there's always a remnant. There was a remnant back at the time of Jesus that was looking towards Jesus. There was a remnant at the time of Elijah when he thought he was the only one. But there was others that were still following God. It's the same today. Not everybody you see that calls themselves Christians are Christians. They might be in form only or in religious practice only. So things haven't changed. The things that we have in the Bible are the same today as they were back then. So a couple other things you'll see locusts that look like horses. They have scorpion tails, and they have face of man, hair of women, teeth of a lion, but they have tails of scorpions, and they're oppressing those who are not following God. Then you have these 200 million horsemen with heads of lions and fire coming out of the mouth, and they have tails of snakes. Now Jesus said, I give you power over serpents and scorpions. And it looks looks like these are demonic forces that hit at the time of Jerusalem. Now, Josephus, the Jewish historian, said, and he was Jewish, one of the rebels in the beginning, but then he was with Rome, pleading with the Jews to just give up and just turn back under Rome. But he was saying that they had gone mad. They were fighting each other, killing each other, doing severe atrocities to each other, stealing each other's things within Jerusalem. And they say 1,100,000 were killed of the Jews, and then 97,000 of them were put into slavery after that. And of course, they tried to let them go. Vespasian and Titus. Titus tried to let them go, but they would not. The ones that did surrender were killed by the others, and in the beginning, so they end up against their own desire. The Romans ended up having to destroy Jerusalem, and they tried to save the temple, but they couldn't, and so it ended up going too. So, and then the 7 bold judgments that you see happening. It looks like each of these is talking about judgments that's coming down on Jerusalem for rejecting God. And what does that say to me? To me, it shows a God that is just and fair. And it's not by blood, but it's what you got in your heart. See, people needed a new heart. They can only get a new heart through turning to God in repentance, and through that innocent one. Jesus is the only one without sin. He took the sin on himself, and he died with that sin so the sin could be wiped out, and then he's resurrected, because death could not hold Jesus. He is innocent, just like they would use an innocent lamb without blemish. Jesus is the only one who didn't sin. So if you want to see what a sinless life is, look at Jesus. He's bold, and he's right straight up. He is the truth. Now, what else do we have? Well, you go to where you have some other things, like you have a beast, that this dragon, 7 heads. So anyway, that's Satan. It shows it's Satan. Then you have 2 other beasts. You have one that is a body of a leopard, mouth of a lion, feet of a bear. It's got horns. But if you look back at the book of Daniel, you see the governments are Babylon is a lion, Media Persia is a bear, Greece is, and then you have this other nation that's got these horns. So it looks like it's talking about political nations. So the devil runs these 2. Now, so a nation, any nation can turn to God. Any nation can turn away from God. You can be used of God, or you can be used of the devil. You know, it's a choice that people make. It's a choice that nations make. So it's possible that could be talking about nations. The other one looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. So it's kind of deceiving, but it could be a religious, if you look back in history, religious powers, they can turn from God, they can turn away from God. Even Christian, as you had religious powers, even within a Christian realm, they called themselves Christian, but many times, like some of the popes were terrible, or it doesn't have to be just popes, but just people in general, just like it was with the Jews. Some of them said they were following God, but Jesus said, no, you're not following God. You're not following Abraham, or you'd be doing what Abraham did. He looked forward to my day and rejoiced. And you're not following God. You're following your father, the devil. Jesus told him right up front, and it's been the same throughout history. So that could be religious powers. Even right now, if you look at ISIS, that's pretty bad, isn't it? But all this kind of stuff has happened throughout history. So anyway, then you see Jesus on a white horse. A robe dipped in blood. He's the one who paid the blood, and the ones who follow him have paid in blood. So we've seen many Christians tortured, crucified, but staying faithful unto death. And then the devil and the beasts being thrown into the lake of fire, and that's what that lake of fire is made for. But there's those who will not turn to God, that they're going to follow the devil all the way, and they'll be thrown in there too. So this judgment, like I said, I don't know if these books here talks about or New and Old Testament or what they are, but we do have the Lamb's Book of Life, and so we're judged by what's in the books. And if you're following God, doing the best that you can, you might be making mistakes. We all make mistakes, but we have a God to turn to help us and to grow in unity, because we're to grow in unity and love. And then there's a new heaven and new earth, that the heavens melt, the earth is burnt or renewed, and so the new heaven on the new earth, and so there'll no more curse. These thorns on these blackberries, it says even thorns are part of a curse. So I just hope that will help you to start to read, start to learn about the Bible. Just continue to read it. You'll learn more all the time you read it, and it's a fantastic book when you want to know what truth is. I see tons of people in media or politics looking for truth, and I admire some of these people. Are very smart. They're looking at things. Some of them are atheists, but they want to do good. But and they're looking for truth, and they're perplexed about, man, why is all this stuff going on in the world? Well, basically, you see in the world is like Western Europe. Maybe that was a Christian, but as they turn from God, they basically go into stupidity and foolishness, and then they try to put they want to exalt their self up with their own way instead of God's way. And we have that stuff in America going on too. So I just pray that more people know the truth, Jesus Christ, turn to Him, and are saved, and that we who are following Jesus, that we will humble ourselves and pray and grow in unity. So God bless you, and I hope that was a help.